Welcome yet again to our channel, The Rated R Bishop. I'm Vincent Mafu. I'm excited and elated again that I have an opportunity to literally travel with you in my mind and give you the revelation of the day. I'm talking about the 7 cardinal pillars that show that you have a negative trend in your bloodline. There are negative trends that you need to confront. 7 clear signs you are under a generational curse. If these signs are there in your bloodline, you must confront them. You will never be able to change what you don't conquer. You will never be able to change what you don't conquer. And every family follows a trend. There's a trend that governs a family. Every family, it's positive trends or negative trends. You are literally a brand ambassador of your bloodline. You trend in the trend of your bloodline. You are a trendsetter. You are literally a trendsetter of your family. You trend in what your blood represents. There are people that trend in positive trends and negative trends, but you are a brand master of your blood. You are a blood ambassador. You don't belong to yourself, your ancestral property. You belong to the people that came before you. The blood that flows in you is not yours. The eyes that you have are not yours. The nose that you have is not yours. That kind of walk that you have is not yours. You are just a genetic imprint. You are ancestral material. You belong to ancestors. Whether you acknowledge it or don't, whether you acknowledge them or you don't, they see it through you. They feel through you. Your ancestors may be dead, but they are buried in you and they are expressed in you. That is why it's important for you to literally confront the negative cycles that are frequential from your bloodline. I believe that every child that is born is an ancestor given a second chance to come and redeem the flaws of the previous. Women are houses that you marry. Every time you marry a woman, you can marry your woman or you can marry the choice. That's why you realize that every family people, some men in the family of a particular type and a particular kind, that is not their kind. It's their ancestry speaking through them. You are colonized by the frequency of your ancestry. And until you can change that frequency, you will keep reproducing your own kind. There is something that we call the law of kinds. Everything in this life produces after its own kind. A baboon will give birth to a baboon. A monkey will produce a monkey. A lion will produce a lion. A mango produces a mango. A banana produces a banana. It's a law of kind. You will produce in the fashion of your kind. Divorce produce divorce. Pain produce pain. Broke produce broke. Until you change the inner substance, the inner frequential settings. There are some faulty family settings that you have to change. Because as long as we don't change the instruments of the family bloodline settings, you will fly to the designated latitude and stop there. You will never go above the status quo of the blood. You have got to confront your blood. And this is why I say that family trends are important. You keep attracting the same men. Sometimes they are tall, sometimes they are short, sometimes they are black, sometimes they are white. The packaging changes, but the substance that you keep dating is the same, because there's something in you that pulls that particular type and that particular kind. Until the internal apparatus is addressed and corrected, you will not stop your trend. What are you trending in? The kind of relationships that you have, the kind of life that you have, the kind of house that you... These are trends. They are family trends. And you are trending in the sequence and the frequency of your bloodline. The first sign that there is a curse in your family, the first sign that there is a negative trend that must be corrected, and they are not in any particular order. But this is a very important one. When there are serial miscarriages in the family, when every family member that comes from your bloodline has serial miscarriages, all the women or men miscarry. 4 or 5 babies. Some never have kids. They marry and they miscarry. Sequentially. It happened to your father's father, your brother, your mother. Serial miscarriage. These are womb covenants. There are some issues in the past that must be addressed that fit that sequence. I'm talking about people that come from families where the womb is not allowed to carry seed. The womb cannot carry. It miscarries. The doctors do not find a medical reason as to why that happens. They don't have a reason. But the wombs don't carry. Repeated miscarriages. Some wombs have covenants with death. Some wombs are caskets. Some wombs are tombs. if there's a generational sequence of wombs that don't carry, or men that attract women that impose their curse, that's a critical sign that cannot be ignored. It's a family feature. You know it, everybody in the family knows it. That your mother miscarried, her sister miscarried, her sister's sister miscarried. It's a family signature. That wombs miscarry severely. That is a curse. That is a negative trend. And if you are a girl or if you are a boy, before you even consider marriage, you must begin to confront this curse. This is a spiritual aberration. There are different reasons, but you need to start investigating the bloodline. Why does this happen? This is part 2. I'll give you a part 3. On every malady, I'm going to give you how to investigate and how to fix. So follow the lecture, follow the class. Remember to like, remember to share. Click that subscribe button right now. Serial miscarriages, when you've got repeated miscarriage, there are people that carry wounded wombs. There are people that have got death vibrations in the womb. If a child dies in the womb, it leaves a frequency of death. It leaves a sequence of death, and the coordinates of the womb turn into a tomb, whether by miscarriage or whether by abortion. But when there are repeated miscarriages in a womb, it cannot be ignored. That is a sign of a curse. And then also, I want to talk about barrenness in the same principle, which comes with the repeated miscarriages. Barrenness itself is another one that falls in this bracket. You realize that barrenness is a serious feature, that the females are barren. Something does not permit the females to carry seed at all. No longer miscarriage, no longer repeated miscarriage, no longer repeat child loss. And remember that every child that the womb loses is a sacrifice to an altar, an invisible altar. It is speaking to an invisible world. It must be addressed that what is the altar that receives these dead children as sacrifices? What is it that is so bloodthirsty for the fetuses? And many of the time there are family stories, there are family sequences. A curse without a cause cannot land. But when we talk about barrenness, replete barrenness as a prominent feature, as a trend, that also indicates and connotes a curse. There are some families that all the women have severe menstrual patterns, crampings, clottings, severely all. It's like a feature. All the females have a horrible cycle. That's an invitation that must not be ignored. And remember, every case is an invitation for a conversation. Every case in the family is an invitation for a conversation, that you must interrogate the history. Because within the womb of history is the key of mystery. So any female complication, sterility and all that, those are signs of a curse. When you have what I call repeated chronic disease in certain families, number 2, repeated chronic disease. They are hereditary diseases. Some make sense medically, some don't make sense medically, but they are there. I know that you talk about sugar, high blood pressure, and all these as genetically passed, but a child that is born and you are 4 years old, you're already prone to diabetes, prone to cancer, shows of a curse. There's a curse. I understand that it makes sense medically that it's hereditary, that okay, it's a curse and that you are 90% prone to this. Before it is already manifested, you already know the family disease, the family chronic disease. I am telling you, it's a curse. It's a curse. Don't say these are what it's a curse. That literally is a curse. Then number 3, there are families that have mental disorders. Madness, for example, where madness, literally, the father ran mad, grandfather ran mad, grandmother ran mad, and there is a number of mad people in the family. Madness as the loss of mind. The loss of mind where you lose your marbles. You lose your marbles. I've seen families where madness is a genetic feature. That's a curse. Usually rooted in witchcraft. Anytime you see the expression of madness within a bloodline, it's rooted in witchcraft. But I'm not giving solutions now. I'm giving you a diagnosis. I'm giving you what to investigate. When you see these that I'm talking about, where mental loss, the loss, or some have mental disorders, bipolar. There's a family I know where there are 4 sisters and all of them are on medication for mental illness as I speak. All of them. I can tell you, if I interrogate the history of the father and the mother and interrogate the family tree, I will find the story, because a curse without cause cannot land. When you see a family replete where all the girls educated, powerful, but all have mental issues, it's a curse, it's a family genetic signature, it's a bloodline signature. Number 4, there are families where suicide is very replete, where there are high stats of people that hang themselves, choke themselves, shoot themselves, throw themselves off buildings, crash into trains, drive off into trucks. But I'm just talking about suicide. There are families where there's a strong, we call it umkonga. And one thing about suicide is that when a person kills himself, they invite a spirit of giving up, a spirit of prematurely dying before time. So the spirit of, when I talk about suicide and also a premature death frequency, where people don't pass a particular age, all that falls under this bracket. It's a curse. Well, literally suicide. In the Zulu culture, when a person hangs themselves, you don't just release the corpse. You need to do a ritual to release the corpse. They beat the corpse and beat the corpse and beat the corpse so that the spirit of suicide exits and is atoned. Bati umkonga. That's the Zulu way of dealing with this level of curse. But suicide is literally a curse. And if you literally can see a pattern of suicide in the family, it has a cause. Surely a curse without cause cannot land. But when you see suicide, replete suicide, that's a curse. When you see people that have premature death, that die before a particular time, that's a curse. That's a curse. They are bloodline covenants. They are early grave covenants. So you have to literally be very careful when it comes to this dimension of suicide. Now, when I'm talking about suicide as a pattern, there are what we call death covenants that happen. If someone hangs themselves in this house, they've opened what I call a death portal, and they've contaminated this space. And if another people come and buy this house and don't do a cleansing of this place, a territorial cleansing of this place, the portal of death will speak against the inhabitants and the new owners of this house. And you will find the pattern of suicide happening, because suicide opens a death portal. Whitney Houston is allegedly have said to die in a bathtub of overdose of drugs or whatever the story is. But Whitney Houston died in a bathtub. I don't know if it was suicide or not, but she died in a bathtub. She was found dead in her bathtub. So we presume she died in the bathtub, and there was a covenant of death in that bathtub. Her daughter, few years later, died exactly like the mother, in the bathtub, in the order of the mother, because nobody corrected that pathology. Nobody corrected that death signature. The daughter checked out in the manner of the mother. And that has created a Houston curse. Because if mother like daughter, like daughter like mother, the same demon that had a death covenant with the mother in the bathtub took the daughter in the covenant of in the bathtub. There was a bathtub covenant of death that prematurely. Whitney Houston died prematurely. Whitney Houston's daughter died prematurely. And there was a covenant with the tub that was never dealt with. And because it was never dealt with, it has now become a pattern, because it has repeated itself. We say that a serial killer is a person that is killed twice or thrice. Then we say you are a serial killer because you have a pattern by which a sequence, a code by how you kill your victims. Spirits operate the same way. Family expressions operate the same way. That is why you can see a serial pattern of suicide. I want to take time against this, because there's a lot of suicidal people in our times. And if you do not address the pattern of suicide, you will marry and be a widow before your time. You will marry a man and you will die before your time, or you marry a woman and die before your time, because suicide is a spirit. I remember counseling a man who had seen his father commit suicide. Didn't actually see the father, but got home and the father had put a gun in his mouth and blew himself up. And he just found the house smelling funny. And the father's brains had messed up the whole walls. He called the ambulance and the police, and they took everything and they took the body. And he says that the worst part was cleaning his father's brains off the wall. And he said, Bishop, the worst thing about it is that my father pulled the trigger, but the gun also blew my brains out. The thing that you do to yourself also affects those that love you. We call that vicarious trauma. When you are the second-hand experience of a trauma that you were not present, but you heard of. So suicide is a very important one. And I think that it's very important that we don't ignore that one. The fifth one is a very critical one, relational decay or marital disintegration, where nobody is married in the family, where everyone who marries divorce. It's a pattern that everybody that has ever attempted marriage divorced. All the girls that marry go back to their father's house. That's a curse. It is a curse of family breakdown, marital decay, where marriage is forbidden. They are blacklisted in the dimension of marriage. I don't care how cute you are, how beautiful you are. If you date a person, please scan the family tree. Are there people who are married more than 5 years? Are there people who are married more than 7 years? What's the span of marriage, if ever is there? How many people are married versus those who are divorced in that family? You have got to investigate that dimension of marriage. Because if you are going to marry and you have seen that it's replete with divorce, there's nothing about you that's different that's going to literally change your circumstance. Because history can predict future. Sometimes we have to look into the past to see how far we can go into the future. And if you are going to literally do a background check of marriage, a marriage background check, how well a marriage is there. Why? Because there are some families that are blacklisted maritally. There is a demonic marital law that does not allow people to marry or exceed a certain number or a certain years. 3 year max, everybody goes back, everybody divorces. That's a curse. If that is always happening and it's a featuring trend in the family tree, it was like that with the father, it was like that with the sister, it was like that with that one, you are not the exception to the rule. You will land where everybody else has landed because it is a trend. So there are certain families that no marriage stands in the bloodline. No marriage at all stands in the bloodline. All the women go back to the father's house, all the boys. And then with that one, there is also a strange pattern of wife laybys. You lay by women, whereby I've dealt with many of these cases where you see someone comes and pays lobola for your sister and goes and disappear, never come back. Now that one is now locked in a prison because it's lay-by. They come, they give cows, they don't finish the lobola, they come and do part of umsebenzi and they leave. They did that to this one, they did that to this mother, they did that to the auntie, and it's a feature. This is a spirit of lay-buying females, where the females are lay-buyed. They are lay-buyed. Spiritually, they've left you in the land of nowhere, in a no man's land. And if that female goes and sleeps around with another, under that she's cast, contaminated the field. And you are now operating under a closed heaven because it is illegal to allow another man to access you when someone has released and made and deposited with a penny and deposited your future with you and made their intentions revealed by substance and laid it there. Whoever comes into you is defiled and you are defiled. But you must understand that there's a spirit of lay-buying women. It's replete in our times where women are lay-by. That's a curse to our sisters. And that is an anti-marital spirit where you are blacklisted in the realms of marriage. I don't care how you are, sir. No matter how prayerful you are, it takes more than prayer to break this. You may love her, but if she's coming from a background where all the females in that family don't marry, where all the females are relegated, go back to their father's house, it's only a matter of time when that time-sensitive curse will trigger and the bloodline will start speaking, because blood speaks. Blood is a voice. Blood is a voice. Blood does not go quiet. And so if you are not careful in the investigating and interrogating history, you will realize that marital decay and this female lay-buying curse will steal your future, rob your destiny, and literally disintegrate you. And then there are people who are accident prone or unnatural accidents. I'm talking about unnatural accidents. The father is in a wheelchair because one day he was just walking and he slipped and fell and became paralyzed. Strangely, a common fall led to an uncommon paralysis. The grandfather, something strange happened. He was just walking a bit, he became blind. I'm talking about a chronic serial pattern of unnatural accidents. There are some families where nobody's allowed to own a car. The grandfather had 3 write-offs. The father had a write-off. The other one is amputated. The leg is amputated because of a write-off. And you realize that all of them are accident prone, heavy duty. That's a curse. And you realize that it's a pattern. It's literally a pattern where they are heavily accident prone. You can't ignore that. And there are families where they are jail prone, where everybody in the bloodline has a covenant with jail. Everybody goes to jail in that family. Everyone has been to jail. I'm talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly, the best and the worst of them, all of them. There's an unwritten contract. There's an unwritten covenant with prison. Everybody in that family goes to prison. Everybody. And I want to tell you something. Prison is very spiritually unclean. And that is why when you leave prison, you must be cleansed. Because prison is an unnatural environment and houses unclean spirits. If you've been to prison or you sleep with a man in prison and you go to prison and you give your boyfriend a quick in prison, you are defiled. Because prison is spiritually unclean. Hospital is spiritually unclean. But I'm talking in the context of being jail prone. There is a genetic pattern. There is a trend. There is a bloodline signature that people in this family go to prison. Why am I saying this? You might marry this guy and he's still fine. Everything is fine. He looks good. He's working. But as long as you don't confront the background of the blood, you will go to prison, or you will produce kids who will go to prison, because blood repeats itself. We are trending in the bloodline signatures of what we come from. So a prison form is very important for me because it's happening, and I'm seeing it now where prison happens. And then there are those that are born with in the chronic sickness. I forgot one serious point, where deaf and blindness. You can't ignore that. Also, witchcraft involvement is there. I want to close with a very important one that I feel that is one that many of us have not mastered. It's financial insufficiency, chronic financial insufficiency. The projection of life happens in a way where the children are supposed to be better than the parents. That is the natural progression of life, where the children are supposed to be better than the parents. But you realize that we are all constantly going backwards. It's okay to be broke, it's okay to have no money, but we are supposed to literally conquer and get to a place where we flow. There are families where no one owns a property. When you look at the whole bloodline, nobody has ever owned a property. Nobody has a degree. Nobody has gone abroad. Nobody has exposure. I'm talking about in families where everybody was born in one house. One house. There's a house where the father once owned it, the brother once owned it, and some kids, all of them were born in that one. The first brother impregnated a girlfriend in that house. The other one impregnated also. I'm talking about chronic poverty. Chronic poverty, generational poverty, where when you look at the bloodline, chronically, nobody owns a property. Everybody is in the township. We all come from township. Township is a ship that never makes it to town. It's an illusion of movement that you don't move. Township was a concentration camp created by white supremacy to contain blacks. When we talk about ghetto, homesteads, and townships, you must understand and understand that the township was constructed to limit your thinking, to disintegrate your esteem by environmental factors that depress you and keep you in a perpetual state of going down. When we talk about replete insufficiency, financial insufficiency, it's a curse. And there are some families who are cursed not to make it in life. Not to make it. Everybody has one career. All of them are nurses. All of them are teachers. All due respect to career. But there must be variety in the types of career. You will see that in some families, all of them were guards and only that. All of them were nurses and only that. All of them were teachers and only that. And even the children become what those were. I counseled a lady in 2017. some years ago who had a degree. She had a degree in law and she was a maid. And she came and I was counseling her. Her mother was a maid, her father was a maid, and the mother was still working for where they were working. And she was a maid with a degree in law, and she was a maid because this was a family curse. And there was a power working in her mind to relegate her to where she comes from. I'm telling you of a maid with a degree. A maid with a degree, because that's what she came from. And the mindset never changed. And she became a maid with a degree. That's a curse. That's a financial insufficiency curse that keeps you stuck in one place, that makes you work like an elephant and eat like an ant. So if you are going to look at these trends, continue. You can see different trends in your family. Confront those trends. Confront those trends. What makes Winston die in a bathtub, and years later, her daughter dies in a bathtub? It is the proliferation of unchallenged, uninterrogated, unbroken family trends. What are your family trends? If you are going to do a family tree exercise, what are the family trends? What are you trending in? What's your mother trending in? What you are, you reproduce. I'm the Rated R Bishop. This is our channel. Please like our channel. Please share our channel. Share it and share it and share it, and let's explode. This is our lecture room of mental combustion. I believe that it's our time now, and it's our time to be seen. Please break this curse. You are the bloodline breaker. Join us again for our next lecture on this beautiful, beautiful, expressive channel. Keep living. God bless you.